Hello.
Hello.
Welcome back to our channel. This is like travels and cooking or travels and food edition of our normal vlogs. I think you like elbowed me. I think we've maybe talked about this before, but we wanted to kind of share. We thought it would be cool to do a video or a couple of videos where we share how cruising or like foods that we've had on cruises or on vacations have kind of inspired us to make them at home.
Yeah.
And so today we're making, well, Devon's making. I will eat, but
Brunswick stew.
Brunswick stew.
So if you go back to our Disney Dream cruise,
We'll insert a clip.
Yeah, we'll put a well, we can go back and watch the video. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
but we'll insert a clip here. We had the Brunswick stew. Lauren picked it up, and it was amazing. And we spent a ton of time dissecting what was in it.
Yeah.
And then recreated it.
Yeah, we had lunch just like randomly on the ship, just in the main dining. And Brunswick stew was an appetizer, and the description sounded really good. And it was really good.
It was great.
And so now we've come home and we've recreated it. Devon has made it many, many times.
I think we've perfected the recipe.
And it's so good. I mean, just enjoy it oh so much. So we're going to share with you how we create it. But first, here's a little look back at the Disney, what was it? Disney Dream?
Disney Dream.
And our discovery of Brunswick stew. And then we'll do some cooking.
So Lauren got the Brunswick stew.
Oh, it's good, huh?
Yeah, it's like corn and pulled pork and all sorts of
Tomato.
fun stuff. Yeah. So for my version of Brunswick stew, I do all of the prep work for like the individual pieces of it, as well as making the Brunswick stew. And what I mean by that is like I make my own stock. So kitchen scraps are your friend. Save your veggie scraps, not potato scraps though. And like your meat, your bones, things like that. You can make your own house stock. Maybe we'll make a video of that at one point. But so you can also get it all off the shelf as well. I slow cook a bunch of pork as well for the pulled pork that goes inside of it. So I'm going to show you what I do for that.
Devon's defrosting his stock right now and the meat and stuff. But I do want to say, I think we should say it just right off the top. Devon's showing you like the full process.
Right.
But you can do this so much easier if you plan it like with leftovers.
Right.
So let's say you are meal planning and you decide to make like barbecue pulled pork like sandwiches or burgers, whatever you want to call them, tacos, whatever, for your dinner. And so you do all of the pulled pork stuff. You put the barbecue sauce in it like Devon's going to do now. Brunswick stew is great with those leftovers.
It's a leftover meal for sure.
It's fantastic that way, absolutely. So if you make a bunch of pulled pork and you want to eat it a variety of ways, like this is one of the ways like that you can do it. And same with like Devon said, like you can buy all of this stuff pre-made and skip a lot of these early steps, right, of the stock and the meat preparation and stuff like that.
You can go to the store in your local store's meat department. There definitely will be like pre-made pulled pork. You can even do carnitas, would go really well in here. Any of that stuff, any shredded meats. Quite frankly, we use pulled pork because that's what's in the original recipe, but you can do it with any of it.
So just worth noting, we're showing you the full thing. Devon's showing you the full thing, but you can make it even quicker if you want to. Skip a couple of steps, which is how I would probably make it. I wouldn't do all of this, but you know, I'm not a chef.
I like to cook. So something that I forgot about was that I actually didn't have a pork roast in the freezer, but I buy the big pork loins from Costco, and then I cut them down into the different cuts that we want from it,
like pork chops and stuff.
Pork chops, loin, all that stuff. Yeah. So you can just use, if you just have a couple of pork chops handy, just chuck them in there too. All right, so pork is in here. My stock has been defrosted and it is in here as well. Don't worry about you're gonna slow cook it, so you don't necessarily have to make sure everything is like 100% defrosted. and just chuck it in there. I'm not going to throw any other additional seasonings in there from like my spice cabinet because my stock is already pre-seasoned. However, I am going to let you in on a little secret. This right here, it's called Better Than Bouillon. It is fantastic, and it really just kind of amps up your recipes. It's way less, has way less sodium than like the powdered bouillon, and it just gives your stuff a little extra kick. So go ahead and toss that in there as well.
How much?
I use 1 tan. We're gonna keep that in.
No.
So I use, since it is better than normal bouillon for like the sodium and stuff, I use just a big tablespoon. Just one, put it in there. So like I said, I'm gonna put just like a big tablespoon in there. And then once the lid and everything goes on for this, 4 to 6 hours is typically what you put in, because you want it long enough that it's not gonna get overcooked, but you still want it long enough that it's gonna be like fork tender. So the pork is done. It's just hanging out right now. I'm gonna go through. I'm just prepping some of the other ingredients that we have. So for Brunswick stew, got some potatoes we gotta weed out. They've been sitting there for a minute. We have potatoes, small dice. We try to go small. The smaller the better. Carrots, onions. We use yellow, but you can really use any kind that you want. Some garlic. Can of diced tomatoes. Can of corn. In the back here, I just have some extra spices and stuff. But the secret ingredient for our Brunswick stew is, because I did this once, because I made pulled pork with barbecue sauce, and then I use that for the Brunswick stew, is barbecue sauce. That's the extra ingredient you don't normally see in Brunswick stew. That's what we do. So I rinse these off, because you always want to save the veggie scraps. You don't want dirty veggie scraps. So what I do is, when I rough chop these guys, just take the first couple of layers that you normally just throw away. Chuck them in a bag that just is in the freezer with veggie scraps. You can use those as stock bases for stuff like this. Chopped part of the veggies. Got a good, like a healthy portion of olive oil going on the Dutch oven. So I'm gonna handle the pork. That's been going for 4.5 hours. I'm just gonna transfer it into another container. And then you're just gonna shred it. Pretty easy. And I'll add my barbecue sauce to it here in a second. But don't throw this away, because this is also going to be, this is all flavor for your stew. There's about 4 cups of liquid in here. You're going to need a lot. You need about double that. But you can use this plus about 4 cups of water when the time comes. So don't get rid of your stock. It's all your flavor. So I've got all my stuff chopped. I'm going to add it to the Dutch oven that's been heating for a minute. And if you ever want to know if your oil is ready, just wet the tip of your finger and put a drop or 2 of water in there. If it's doing that, your oil's ready. The onions flying all over the place. You should always get yourself a handy wooden spoon. They're good for everything. ready to add all of our other ingredients. So this part goes really, really quick. These have been going for about 15 minutes just so they soften up in the olive oil. They are looking pretty good. So we're going to do just your standard tablespoon of garlic. And the reason we're adding the garlic in later is because we don't want it to burn, because then it will make everything bitter. And nobody wants that. We're going to take our corn, drain it. We don't want that juice. We don't want it to be too sweet, but I have a trick for that if it does end up being too sweet anyway. So 1 can of corn. Your tomatoes, feel free to do that with juices and everything. All right, we're going to do about 3/4 tablespoon of black pepper. And then we'll keep the salt to taste for later. You don't want it to be too salty. Toss in some potatoes. And give it a good stir. I'll mix everything up really well before we add in all of our liquids. Alright, so that stock that we set aside a little bit earlier, and do 4 cups of that. And you fill this up, do another 4 cups of water. So we're going to do another 4 cups of water after we do our stock. Alright, we can't forget our pork. Now I may have made too much, so I'm going to add about 3/4 of it and see where that gets us. Crank that heat up so everything comes to temperature. Let's do a little more. And if you do make too much of this like I just did, it freezes really well if you're not going to use it like in the next couple of days. So just put it in a bag and flat pack it. If you want to know any other tips and like how to store that stuff, just let us know in the comments. Okay, so always have a spoon set aside to taste. You should be tasting as you go. So between the tomatoes and the corn, it is a little sweet. So if you're gonna kind of neutralize that a little bit, do some lemon juice. So for this, I'll eyeball like maybe a teaspoon and a half. And it'll change what it looks like visually. It'll like brighten it up. And it'll level out the sweetness. So I'm glad I didn't add the extra salt because I think it actually is perfect the way it is with the salt. Alright, and then it sits, let it boil, turn it down to a simmer, about 30 minutes, you've got stew. Alright, so if you do want to give the Brunswick stew a little extra oomph, you can add a couple of bay leaves. I wouldn't add more than 2. Just because you don't want it to overwhelm. Stays in there the entire time, just don't wait for it to boil or anything, just throw them in there. But please remember to take them out before you eat. Don't eat these things. So after everything's said and done, you just grab a ladle, serve it up. And this usually makes anywhere from 8 to 10 servings, depending on how much you want. So good.
Yeah, it's really good. Yay! Yeah, it turned out so good. Thanks.
Yeah.
It makes lots of leftovers, like Devon was saying. And they heat up like really well. You can do it on the stovetop, obviously, or even in the microwave. It heats up really well.
Yeah.
It's very tasty. So definitely check out. I'll have Devon write the recipe in the description box below if you want to see more of the step-by-step kind of thing.
Already done in my phone.
Great. So now we'll just put it in the description box. And stay tuned. Devon's going to do another cooking video. Probably not right this second, but in a little bit that you'll see of penne carbonara, which is inspired by Royal Caribbean. So definitely,
Jamie's Italian.
Definitely stay tuned for that, and we will catch you guys in the next video. Happy eating! That's not our slogan, is it? That's somebody else's slogan.
That probably is definitely his slogan.
Okay, we'll catch you on the next one. Bye!